Thanks for tuning into Upward Way Podcast. If you're looking to be spiritually blessed, moved, and inspired, there is no doubt you are in the right place. On our show, guests recount their encounter with Christ and how their lives have been transformed through the grace and love of God. And now, please welcome our host.
Hello and welcome to Upward Way. I am your host, Marlon Walters. My guest today is the co-founder of the People of Shenzhou, a mission to reach Mandarin-speaking folk in the UK with the Three Angels message. Pin Yeo, welcome to the Upward Way.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone.
It's my joy having you here today. And I'm really so fascinated to learn so much about your mission, your ministry, the People of Shenzhou. Could you just give us a little taste as to what this mission is all about and maybe when you get started into all of this?
Yeah, we are just a small group of passionate church members. We earnestly desire to share the everlasting gospel, especially the Three Angels message, through a caring and supporting Mandarin-speaking community, especially here in the UK and hopefully across the world as well. Because what we see is that having lived in this country for almost 30 years as a Seventh-day Adventist, we haven't seen a Mandarin-speaking church in this country anywhere. And so myself and Sister Lei, who is the founder of the group, she approached me during lockdown last year and said that, Pin, we have always been talking about this, starting something, and hopefully, our vision is always to have a Mandarin-speaking church in the UK. And we talked about that many, many years ago, even before our children were born. So that was almost 20 years ago, but it never came to fruition and never started anything because soon after, we had our own family, children came along, and Sister Lei was busy with work. So something good came out from the lockdown, I would say, so we thought this is the time, and we started it over Zoom group, like a, fellowship group as a care and support group initially to reach out to immediate friends and families.
Sounds wonderful. So in a nutshell, your ministry started sometime last year, as you said, during the lockdown. And what has it been like thus far since you have started? What has the feedback been like, that is?
Wow. We initially had families who are also Seventh-day Adventists, especially Sister Lei's brother, who is a pastor in Australia. And he has his group and his family members joining us. And then, that is the initial setup. And he came to share testimonies. Yeah, we invite friends, work colleagues, and feedback from people are very warm and welcoming group. And it's a place that people find that there's a sense of home, hearing the familiar language and, people coming together, talking about God, and encouraging one another, praying for one another. And it makes people feel very comfortable, and something that we even have a friend who worked night shift as a nurse. And when she come back from her duty on a Sabbath afternoon, she makes sure that she doesn't fall asleep, or she would even set alarm clock to join the group.
Very exciting. And I noticed you said at the beginning that it was out of a need, something that has been on your heart for well over 20 years. And already you could consider yourselves, I know it has not yet started, but as church planters, people have dreams to start a church. And one day I know it will move outside of, we'll say, the online, and it will also have a physical building there.
By God's grace.
By God's grace, right.
Yeah.
You did mention that, you have been in the UK for well over 30 years. So we could assume that you're not originally from the UK. So could you just shed a little as to, your background, where it is that you're from?
I come originally from Malaysia, from a Chinese family, quite a traditional family. I would say that my family background, a mixture of Taoism and Buddhism as well. And so when I came to the UK, I think God has been leading in my life in a miraculous way that I never know until I look back after I became a Christian and how and when the seeds could have been planted in the first place. And I realized that it was even way back down when I was in primary school, because even though my parents, especially my dad, he came directly from China to live in Malaysia, but my mom was born and raised in Malaysia. My mom and my dad had very, very different backgrounds because my mother was educated under the British colony time in Malaysia. And so she was raised up in the convent school. And when I was young, they sent me to a convent school. And so that's first when I heard of Bible stories about the stories of creation. Yeah, but hearing Bible story as like just another story, like a children's story. Until I came to the UK and somebody shared with me, I will tell you more. Yeah, somebody shared with me this VOP, corresponding Bible study course, and that's where I learned the Adventist truth and came to the church.
You did say VOP, that's an acronym for Voice of Prophecy.
Oh, yes.
You have just given us a little taste as to your faith journey. And so I'm just going to give you the opportunity now to share in a fulsome manner how it is that you came to be a Christian. So you could just walk us along that journey.
Christian journey.
Yes.
It's very amazing because after I completed my studies in Malaysia, it's very natural that families, wherever parents are able and could afford, they will send their children to studies abroad to continue their higher education. Just because being a minority race in Malaysia, the opportunity for careers isn't that great. So my parents chose to send me over here to study. And when I came here, even though I had friends who came along with me, somehow God just placed me in a hall of residence when none of my friends were staying together with me. I was left alone in a foreign country, so to speak. And I think that is where God is slowly, trying to tell me that I need not feel lonely, that I'm not alone. So he led me to a group of Sunday Christians. And they were, I would say that they're very, very sincere people. And it's through them that people offer me a place to stay for my following year of university. And I came to live with this Christian family who is just like a live-in landlord with his sister. And they started taking me to church with them on every Sunday and also going to their Friday night Bible study. And I think that's where I first had a proper Bible study. And we are studying the book of John, and that's where I slowly began to learn about, studying the Bible. And at the fellowship group, and that's where I met this brother who handed me out the first lesson of the Voice of Prophecy Bible study lesson. And from there on, I got hooked. I just, couldn't wait for the following week. I keep doing my studies and send it back quickly and can't wait for the next one to come through the post. During those days, you only rely on the post. It was like not internet, no Google.
Sounds fascinating, those part. There are two things that you did say, that you just outlined, and I want to I would say, piggyback on both. Just walk me a little through the whole idea of being a minority. What is it like, to be a minority, you said in Malaysia and then also in the UK, because on both counts you would have been a minority. What has that experience been like?
I find it, the oppression, I think, is more in Malaysia because you don't get equal opportunity as a minority, even though you might produce very good results academically, but the local universities still will offer different entry or admission criteria for different race. See, like the majority, the Malays, will get a more privilege, even though their grades might be not as great, but they will get a place secure for the university, but not people like us. And so that is quite hard in a sense, because then we will see the minority groups using their own efforts to group together, come together. Maybe the more well-to-do ones will offer some kind of help in scholarship or student loans or grants to help out people of our same ethnic background who can really do well, but just parents couldn't afford to send them for further education overseas. Yeah, we'll see that kind of help and support from your own people. But over here in the UK, I don't find it that bad, really, because that's why, you know, many of us come over and left the country to go to different parts of the world, because you find that this is where, you know, you can use your own, somebody can recognize you for who you are, really, for what your capabilities.
In other words, you could say it's more like a level playing field where you're.
Of course, of course.
Thank you for that insight or those insights. The experience you had where you went to that Bible study and this person gave you the first lesson of the VOP, voice of prophecy. There are many persons of faith who are a little, shy, they are a little timid, they are wondering, will the person open up? But in your case, this gentleman apparently did not have any doubt in his mind. So what would you say to persons who would like to share the faith, but they are a little bit hesitant because maybe they are afraid of rejection? What would be your advice to those individuals?
I think I myself used to be like that. But once you think that, it is not me who is doing it, but it is God who is doing it, then you find it a lot more easier. Even when you go out and giving out, distributing leaflets and magazines, we go in the name of the Lord. The person is not going to see you for who you are. It's the Spirit that will lead and guide the person's heart. That is all that matters, So I just leave it to the Lord. Whatever it is, it is God who knows, and pray that God will lead you to the right person that He wants you to reach to. That's the only thing that we can do.
A very simple yet succinct answer. It is well loaded. As you said, it's just leave it to the Spirit of God to do the leading. God speaks to us all in His own unique way, in His own time. Based on your own experience, how would you say God most often speaks to you? In terms of what method does He often use whenever He communicates with you?
Bible text, for one, is one way that I really like. When we come to, whether it's reading it in your quiet time or Bible text that just somebody would maybe send to you, or it could be a song for myself, a hymn. Some words sometimes really touch me. And another way is also through situation, things happening, circumstances that I don't really, you don't really expect at the time. So, maybe when you pray and God just put a thought into your mind or bring someone to you and at that point say something to you. Or it could be a sermon. Sometimes when you listen to a sermon, you really think that that message is really very timely and it's for me at the right time, just suited for my situation. That's just exactly what I need. Then at that moment, just thank you, God. How do you know that I really needed this? I needed to hear this.
I really enjoy your answers. There are some individuals, they tend to have this one-dimensional way. So if it's not via dream, if it's not via sermon, they won't listen. But you are saying God speaks in so many different ways, through songs, through music. For me, it's similar in my case. There's really no one way in which God speaks to me. Is it difficult for you to be a Christian, or is it easy?
Very good question. I ponder upon this question, and I think that, yes, initially I would say that the beginning journey is not easy, but it's once you step out in faith for that first step and make that decision and be fully determined in your heart to follow Christ. And then, things will become easier. Because if I think back now, I think it would be much harder being a non-Christian sometimes. Yeah. So it's not easy becoming a Christian or being a Christian, because when you have the world surrounding you, but also, without Jesus in my life, I can't imagine how it would be, as now that we know Him, I know that in everything is, Him who is leading. Any trouble at all, we don't need to worry. I don't need to fear about what's happening tomorrow. So it will be difficult if I haven't got Jesus. With Jesus, I can go anywhere without fear.
There was one individual who said, I'm quoting verbatim, that living a life without Christ, it's like going up and down elevator. It's really a difficult, almost an impossible task.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you some questions that speaks to, difficulties and challenges at this particular moment. Was there ever a moment along your journey? And when I say along your journey, not limited to your spiritual journey, but life journey in essence, where you would say you experienced maybe one of the biggest doubt in terms of, God, are you there? Or God, what is it that you want from me at this time?
Oh, yes. I would say that the very difficult time is just a few years after I got married. Within 2 years, I suffered 3 miscarriages. And so I think that will be the hardest time for me in my spiritual journey, because, it's constantly you are trying to battle with the spirit and with the voices to tell you that, you are not going to get this blessing for your womb and all sorts of things. So I began to question and pray to God, what is it? And when do you not want me to be a mother? And so I think that journey was tough for me. But having been through that, I think that's one verse that really encouraged me and stuck in my mind at that time, is that my grace is sufficient for you. And, my strength is made perfect in your weakness. And also that, God is so faithful. He will not let me go through things that I cannot bear. And few years after that, when I actually came into contact with some, quite a few ladies, I don't know why, but God just led me to quite a few ladies like who were going through the similar, situation, and I was able to encourage them with my experience. And so I thank God for that.
Someone may listen to you talking about you're going through your challenge and you were able to see the hand of God guiding, so much so that you could help others. The question is, how is it that you are able to see God, amidst all this difficulty? Because we expect that when we are chosen of God, that things will work out in our favor. So how can you see God even amidst your own personal tragedy?
Because I see that in the Bible, even when God promised, Abraham promised Isaac, or, to have children, but especially in the case of Abraham, it took years and years. It's not that, God's favor is not on them, but I think it's a faith testing time. You see, it's very amazing that why Abraham is being promised as the father of all nations, and that his wife is ironically in the eyes of the world was a barren woman. And so I could trust in God's promise. And even if he, meant for me to be a childless woman, I trust that, because I had a lot of nieces and nephews, and I could also be a motherly role model for them. I could love somebody else's children, if not my own.
Right. You're saying it's just trusting God in spite of. That's
Yes.
real faith. When you face your challenges, I know you have answered enough, but what's your secret for overcoming difficulties?
My secret of overcoming difficulties, I think, is knowing that God sees things different from how I see it. His thoughts is higher than our thought, and his ways higher than our ways. And, keep going back to Bible promises. So long as you're following someone who knows the beginning from the end, and I think that is where I can put my faith in, my trust, no matter where he is leading me, because I know that in the past, he has led me through difficult times, and he will not choose to leave me or forsake me at this time. So every other, future challenges or whatever that might to face me, rejection, persecution, I know that because he took me through, the tough times in the past, and he will be with me even to the end.
Yes, and that was the exact thing he said to Joshua. He said to Joshua, fear not, be of good courage, because I will never leave you nor forsake you. And so
Nor forsake you. Amen.
then you can hold on to them and your faith can be anchored. Now, on a lighter side, what do you think would surprise most persons about you?
When people see me, maybe they will be surprised first to say that, oh, you have a 16-year-old son? You don't look it. Oh, and then the next thing you say, and yet, better still, you have a much younger son, 7-year-old. And so, given what I told you from my experience, God had granted me miracle children. From the first one, after the 3 miscarriages, I had him just with no complication at all, just smooth. But with the second one, who was truly unexpected, because having gone through 3 miscarriages, you think that, one child is more than I could ask for, right? And then 9 years down the line, unexpectedly thought that, you're way past the childbearing age. And then God bless us with another one. And the other thing maybe is people think that, why do I give up my career? Because I was trained to be a lawyer. And why do I give up for the family, for the children? So I think these are the things that might, surprise people.
Well, the first one you mentioned is when you said, you have a 16-year-old and, you look so young. But that one is a surprise to me. You did mention, the miracle of having that second child. And that is how God works, We don't often see him as having a sense of humor, but sometimes the blessings faces in our lives shows that he does have a sense of humor. Have you ever been given an assignment by God that you said, God, no, I can't manage this one, please?
Oh, yes. I've done the Jonah, Jonah role, whatever you call it, the Jonah runaway. I think if there's one that I have to pinpoint, will be homeschooling, because I thought that was a very, very tough challenge. And I tried to run away from that. And so when I had my first child, I have friends around me that were homeschooling and encouraged me to do homeschooling. But I was too much of a coward. So I think God had his way of making us do what he wants us to do, even with Jonah's case. So I put my child in a mainstream school, a faith school. And come the third year he was in school, I think when he was in year three, and there were things that happened to him in school that was very unpleasant. He was bullied by a child, and in the beginning, and then later on things got worse, and he was even punched by a child, and that the school wasn't doing their part, not doing enough for what I felt as a parent, and let the child off, not even with a word of apology. And I just thought, that's it. That was, enough. So that's how God made me withdraw my child from mainstream school and kept him at home and homeschool him.
Right. It's hard, getting that punch and being bullied. But what has that experience been like? You are the second person I know who, homeschools full time. What is that like? Is it like pulling your hair out? What is that experience like?
I would say that, first of all, this didn't last for too long. Okay, so he was year 3, and then I homeschooled him for about 2 years. And I did enjoy those 2 years. But that's when the little brother came along, and I find it very, very hard to cope. And he was distracted. And so we had no choice but send him back to school again. But I would say that those 2 years, I really, I think was like a very pleasant time, enjoying that child for who God made him to be, and also not being confined to the rules that the world set for you is one thing. He enjoyed making friends with people even not of his age. So enjoying other activities at our own leisure, learning at our own pace. Because in those days, back then, there were not many support or very organized materials or syllabus that you can follow, particularly not from our church at that time. But I did enjoy those times with him because there's true bonding time between parent and child.
All right. I have to say thanks for that, because when many persons think about homeschooling, they think about pulling their hair out, having things upside down, topsy-turvy, but you're saying it was a good bonding period. And listeners, in case you are contemplating what homeschooling can be like, you just heard it from Pin that it was a good period. She did say there were challenges, but it was a good bonding period. All right, thank you. Onto a little bit of a more, say serious note. There are individuals who struggle with their faith. Well, we all do, but so much so that they end up walking away from the faith. What do you think is causing or has caused so many persons to walk away from the faith? And after you answer that question, I will follow up to say, what could be a solution to fixing that situation? So first, what is it that caused so many persons to just throw in the towel and give up on their faith?
Wow, that is truly quite a difficult question because I can't really speak for other people, but from what I see, that could have been the problem is that people don't spend enough time with God. And when you don't get recharged, and the more time we spend doing the worldly stuff, then you get sucked in by the world. And so when trouble comes, you find that that connection with God is not there, and that you get pulled in by what the world is expecting you to do rather than, being strongly anchored in God, to say that, whatever storm that comes your way, God is my anchor. I can hold on to that and will stand firm. So I think maybe that's one problem, that people get too busy with their lives and not spending with God.
Okay, so your solution would be in following.
Yeah, I think the solution really is, spend more time praying and studying the Bible, and also not forgetting to count our blessings. Even when you have nothing to ask God in your prayer, there is no request, but you can always thank God. Find something to thank God. Even waking up in the morning, that is also be thankful that God has given us another day. Small little things in life, you never run out of things to thank God for.
There's a song or maybe like a chorus that I used to sing growing up in Jamaica. It was Count Your Blessings, name one.
Name them one by one.
When I read the Bible, and nowadays, I am enjoying it even so more to read. But when I read the Bible and I reflect on the story of Joseph, it often brings tears to my eyes. And the reason, because there are aspects of his story that I would say is synonymous with my own personal journey. Now, is there a character, Bible character, that when you look at your life, you could say there are things that parallel your life?
I can't really pinpoint a particular one, but I would say that perhaps in different phase of my life, maybe you can relate to different Bible character at the time. So yes, of course, Joseph definitely is one of them that I can relate to, because he had to leave his own country and be in another country far away from his family. And for me, yes, many years ago when I did that, even though after I finished my studies, I could have gone back home, but I chose to stay in this country because I know that at that time, God said to me that, if you stay on because you are the first Christian in your family, or even the first Adventist in your family, there's going to be a lot of conflict coming up with family. So it's better for me to leave and to be able to, establish my faith away from my family before I go back to my family and share the gospel with them and share that, my experience and my journey with them.
Right. And the last question that I will throw to you today, if you could give God thanks for one person, who would that person be and why?
I would thank the person who gave me that first Voice of Prophecy studies lesson, because that's how, God has put it in his heart to obviously give it to me. And, that's how I came to the Adventist truth. Yes, of course, I struggle when, you come to learn about the Sabbath truth, but that is also a separate incident, how God has shown me in a way, that is so clear that the Adventist church is where I belong and where I need to go. That's the true church. Do I have time to share with you how? Yes. Yeah, because that was the time when I prayed to God, because I was struggling. I went back home for my legal training to be a barrister. That time I told God, I really need you to point me to a church. If I'm going to spend 9 months to a year here, you need to show me which church I should go to. Is it a Sunday church, or is it where's the Adventist church that I could go to? And lo and behold, I was, driving along, going back to my parents' house one day. And for some reason, I was stuck in a traffic jam. That road was never busy, really. I was just like maybe a few hundred yards away from my parents' home. And then I was stopped right there. And then I was looking left and right. And there, right before my eyes, it says Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I was like, God, you must be kidding me. How is this church here? All these years, I never knew. And it was just 5 minutes walk from my parents' home. How amazing is that? So perhaps I will tell you that the person who gave me that Bible study lesson later became my husband.
Oh, wow. So amazing. I thought of asking this question about, have you ever had an encounter with God that had you cracking up with laughter, but without asking, you have provided that answer. So amazing. The life saved sometimes, can become hard.
Life is really full of ups and downs, and, amidst some trials and, maybe the enemy throw some darts at you, that I can still see that God wants to bless me and He is there. I tell you this, that last year during lockdown, for no reason, I did not know when all of a sudden I started to receive some letters and notices of demand from some bailiffs to claim some unpaid debts relating to parking offences. And those debts that we're talking about is just accumulative. That was so high. And when I called up those bailiffs, and they were people who just want to take money out of me, not willing to hear my reason whatsoever, because I found out that what happened is that the car who committed those parking offences were actually a clone car. Somebody else cloned my car registration number and been driving down into London, parking, without paying, or right into the congestion zone and without paying the charges. And I did not know about it until the bailiffs were at the door. So I said, God, give me somebody to be able to help me out of this situation. And true enough, God is so faithful. He guided me to a lawyer, because I'm no longer practicing. This lawyer is actually a parent from some years ago when my son went to the same tutor with this boy, and is a parent from there. And he was also a fellow Malaysian. And why do I say that God had me cracked up laughing? Because when he first sent me the letter of instruction, which I supposed to sign and say that I confirm I engage him to act for me in this case, I said to God, I had no doubt that you were sending this man to help me. But the way that he, I see so many even basic grammar mistakes in that letter, I just have to crack up laughing, because I say, God, are you serious? I could have write a better letter. I mean, but I say, I know it is your doing, because you want to tell me that when you deliver me out of this ordeal, it will be all glory to your name. It's not because of what this lawyer can do or cannot do, but it is all because of you, because his promise is very sure. He says to me that you will not need to fight this battle. In 2 Chronicles 20 verse 17, position yourselves, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord who is with you. I really put my trust in God, even though this is still an ongoing battle, but I know that at the end, when deliverance comes, that will be all glory to his name.
I'll quote Hebrews 11 verse 1 for you. Faith is a substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things
not seen.
My guest today is Pin Yeo, the co-founder of the People of Shenzhou, a mission to reach Mandarin-speaking folk in the UK with the Three Angels message. Now, Pin, just before we go, do you have any parting words for our listeners?
Can I say that if any of your listeners are interested to know more about our group and to join our Zoom meeting, even you can email to us for the Zoom detail. You can find us at voiceofsoulsharing.com. Also, you can find our weekly Zoom invitation on Facebook at the Chinese Seventh-day Adventist Facebook page. So it's Voice of Soul Sharing, VOICEOFSOULSHARING at protonmail, PROTON mail, one word.com.
Right. Thank you. You have been in tune to Upward Way. Do join us again next week when we'll have another interesting guest sharing his or her story of faith. You can subscribe to weekly episodes on Apple, Spotify, Listen Notes, or you can just go to the App Store and download the AWR app. Until then, I'm Marlon Walters saying goodbye. May God bless you.
You've been listening to the Upward Way podcast, the #1 audio production show for people who want encouragement and reassurance in a muddled world.